Hi guys, welcome to the latest Canna We Talk Now. Big excitement about this one again. I'm always seem to be excited, but the thing is that this is real. This is to give my little backstory again in case people forget. I'm an MS patient, PPMS, and literally I spend half the year in Barcelona because I need to access, and I've got the right to grow here, to grow plants, and I can self-medicate. And so I've been doing that for several years now. I tend to avoid the Irish winter. It's part of my refugee status that's required because my MS is badly affected by weather. But it's a real thing that for years I have been trying to get my consultant to support an application, support an application for the MCAP program, and I've never had any joy. He's part of we're linked to the Mater Hospital in Dublin, who have actually stated practically to me that there's a policy of not having anything to do with supporting anything in the zone of medical cannabis. So that's my story, and I'm not alone. There are people all over Spain, because Spain is an obvious one. We have the cannabis social clubs here. We have the right to grow, and not everybody wants to grow. That's another thing. So people who have real patients. We have Alicia Maher in Alicante, who's basically there's a lady who's reduced her opioid consumption from 900 a month to 0 with cannabis. So there is real Irish people, Irish medical refugees spread across Spain, particularly because it's easy and the weather helps a lot of our conditions. So the fact that we have a possibility in Ireland, well, we have a possibility in Ireland on a piece on 6 counties in this moment where medical cannabis is actually legal. So we have 2 jurisdictions that's causing an awful lot of anomalies, and so today it's a great chance for us to get a feel for what's happening. A press release dropped in the last week or two from Gary Whipp, who got on the line, and Gary is he's the CEO of Medicann Group. So everybody's a little bit surprised as how are they going to do it? So I got Gary here. Gary, welcome to my humble show.
Thank you. So
that's the question. I'm going to hit you right at the top, because I've pitched for questions across different platforms, and I've got a big reaction, and I've got a lot of questions here. We have limited time, so I've only got a half an hour with you, and but the big one is everybody's at the top is about access. So, okay. How can you bring access to the people, essentially?
Okay, so I'm sure you're aware, and I'm sure most of the patients are aware, there are 2 ways of accessing medicinal cannabis currently. One is the MCAP program, which most people are familiar with, but not as many people are actually registered. And the second is Ministerial license. Ministerial license obviously is the one that we will use for things like chronic pain, fibromyalgia, anxiety, PTSD, spasticity, anything that is not covered by the MCAP program will be covered by one of our specialists who will be able to prescribe.
Exactly. I'm exactly an example of somebody who's fallen through the cracks of this MCAP program. It's so restrictive. I'm like I said, a PPMS patient, but I don't have spasticity. So while I have a condition that fits the restrictive 3 or 4 conditions they have on the MCAP, but I don't. My problem is chronic pain. So that's what I need my cannabis for.
And chronic pain is one of the main things that we prescribe for in all other jurisdictions. I mean, somewhere in the region of 1/3 of the population of Ireland are affected by chronic pain.
There you go. And I had a previous call with a guy, Alan, he's got the only legal. I think he was the first UK vape lounge was the first guy. But he has a vape lounge. But in the conversation, we talked about the fact that Ireland has a lot of PTSD. I'm 50. If anybody who's 50 years old knows a lot of the trauma and stuff that went down in Ireland in this, the troubles that we had for 30 years. And so Alan is absolutely, the people coming into him, he says, this is what they're, using his vape lounge for.
Absolutely. Anxiety, PTSD, depression, all medical conditions that can be treated. Medicinal cannabis isn't a miracle cure by any stretch of the imagination. However, it can give people a quality of life that they haven't had before and change people's lives.
You're going to use the ministerial license route, is the answer to that kind of big question that people had?
Yes.
Right. And at the moment, we only have, I believe, 50 people on the ministerial license. We only have 12 families. The last I heard, there's only 12 families. I don't know how they describe that families. The 12 families on the MCAP, and that's the latest figures I got from Cron, who are very on top of this.
I think you're right, and I think there is a reticence in the medical community to embrace medicinal cannabis, and this is why companies like ourselves who go into different jurisdictions, and I'm from an island myself, so not spelt slightly differently, but the island of Man, and we encounter this all the time, which is why we use specialists who are trained by Mike Barnes, who are trained to prescribe medicinal cannabis. They do a prescriber's course, and their education doesn't stop there. We have multidisciplinary teams that work with our consultants and who train them on a weekly basis, because things change. Different products come into the marketplace, and they have different effects on different conditions. So it's a changing and growing world of medicine.
Right. And within that, I know people with ministerial licenses in Ireland, and a few of them have kind of, because there's limited product within what they're able to access. It's just a couple of flowers on Medicann, and they're kind of finding that after a while it's not working so well for them. According
to my team, who are far more familiar with Ireland than myself, the lack of prescribable medication is more a lack of willingness to engage and promote the different medication, because as far as I've been told, and I'm happy for somebody to correct me, but we can prescribe any medication that has been prescribed in the EU.
Right. So it's and I would say we have a very high barrier in Ireland in our medical system. There is a real reluctance.
That's why all of our people are medicinal cannabis specialists, and because you need to know and you need to embrace medicinal cannabis. And once any doctor sees the change in his patient, because every doctor, they're patient-centric. If once they see the change in a patient's life and their condition, and they tend to become more engaged with medicinal cannabis. So if they're reticent in the first instance, once they see changes, and our team of with patient permission, videoed people who their lives have dramatically changed, and people say, well, hang on a minute, what have you done that's different? You've been on this for 3 years, you've been on this for 2 years, you've been on this. Oh, what I've done different is I've been using medicinal cannabis. Wow. And that's what you get,
And it's dramatic for some. In some cases, it's, epilepsy. We have all the anecdotes, we kind of know them, but we have real life cases. I was explaining to you before we came on the call that Ireland now has, in the last year, in May or June, early June, late May, we had two of our angels, let's call them, Ava and Abigail, two kids with epilepsy who basically passed. but they live their lives, and their parents live the families around them live their lives in horrifically trying to battle to get access. Vera Toomey famously walking from her home in West Cork to Leinster House to talk to somebody to get her access to the oils that her kid desperately needed. And so there's real heartfelt pain out there as well. So you'll be confident.
kids tend to pull at our heartstrings, and they are unfortunately the most difficult people to prescribe for, because there are not many child or adolescent doctors that are trained in medicinal cannabis.
Yeah, and I was watching it. Recently we had a health committee where the pediatric consultant on the health committee, that's his job, is to prescribe to kids. And he said blatantly to the health committee that there's not a chance he'll ever prescribe cannabis for his kids. So the barriers are.
I mean, unfortunately, people think of cannabis as somebody sitting in a corner, rolling a joint, and it's only when they see the effects it has and the changes and the way it improves people's lives that they tend to look at it differently. And that's the problem. People look at this as a recreational drug, and they don't look at it as a medicine. And when they talk about cannabis, they talk about it in a whole. They don't talk about it as if, a lot of children who are helped, the vast proportion of the medication they're having is CBD. And trace amounts, tiny amounts of THC, and people still are reticent to look at helping children, and it's a very difficult position.
So on that, just to follow on that, so will you bring something to the table in terms of educating our medical industry in the South?
Absolutely. One of the things we do in all jurisdictions is we try and engage with local doctors, we try and recruit local doctors, and we try and educate local doctors. Some people will embrace it. Some people won't take any, won't even attend a lecture that we give. So there will be doctors locally that will start to embrace it, and the more people that engage and the more people that are treated with this medicine, the more doctors will start to promote it.
And how does that training kind of manifest itself? Is that it?
Yeah, it's an ongoing training. So the initial training is by Professor Barnes, which is what we call the prescribers course, which educates people on, this medication has been around for hundreds of thousands of years. I mean, the Egyptians used it, the Chinese have used it, Queen Victoria used it for menstrual pain. So, it's been around, and it's educating people that it has been around, and then talking about the different products, the different conditions, talking about the different ways that it can be administered, all these things, because it's not, you can't smoke medical cannabis. It's illegal to smoke medical cannabis.
Nobody would prescribe it.
Correct.
Yeah. And I'm a vapor, just to put that out there, but and because smoking is a disaster for your health anyway, so the idea of burning combustion.
Yeah. One of the big problems with smoking is you can't control the temperature, and in most cases people who smoke cannabis tend to mix it with tobacco, which makes it very addictive. So yeah, that's the reason that it's illegal to smoke.
Just to get back to that central question that people have, is that you feel you'll be able to, using the ministerial license program, how exactly do you see that working?
So you basically, you work with us to show that you have a condition that we feel can be treated with medical cannabis. So you come, you speak to one of our consultants. It can be done on a secure video link. It can it can be done in the Hermitage Clinic, where we have a suite at Suite 30 in the Hermitage Clinic, which I'm sure a lot of your patients will be familiar with in Dublin. But a lot of it will be on secure video link. So you then give us access to your medical records. So you tell your GP that we're able to access your records. GP sends our consultants the records. They look at what you have, what your condition is. They look at the treatments that you've tried, the traditional treatments, the treatments that lots of people tried, the opioids, the baclofens, all the things that lots of people are trying to get off. And then they evaluate your eligibility for medicinal cannabis. Once they then present that anonymously to an MDT, which is a multidisciplinary team. So let's say that it's pain. The specialist would present to 2 other pain specialists and would say, look, this is the person, MJ, he's 45, he's got this problem, he's had this condition for this many years, these are the things he's tried, I believe he's eligible. The 2 MDT consultants that are on agree with him, hopefully, or they push back and ask for more information. Once they all concur that you are eligible, then between the 3 of them, they look at what the best prescription would be for you, and that would then be submitted on your ministerial license.
Very good. And can you give a little bit of reassurance on the data? Because people are skeptical these days about the data, particularly medical.
As in the security of the data.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, it's all done by secure video link. All the relevant information that you send is secured. It's not accessible by third parties. I mean, it's exactly the same as having your data on your doctor's registry.
Right. But there is the element of being a private clinic that there's a little bit of people's there's skepticism. We have to.
Yeah, I mean, people are skeptical, but what if they look at something that's very new? If you look at Jersey, you look at Guernsey, you look at the Isle of Man, which is the more recent one, there are controls and conditions in place to make sure that we are who we are and that we are, conducting a medical facility in the appropriate manner and securing and communicating data in the appropriate manner.
Safeguards. And so within that, talk to me a little bit about the cost, because I was on the cannabis awareness from was it both the week, the Cannabis Awareness Week webinar. I was on that myself, and a lot of people are skeptical about the price in the end, the price of the product, and the people who are complaining about the costs of consultations and the repeat nature of consultations required.
Yeah, I think the nature of the fact that it is only a private prescription and that it's unlicensed medication in most cases does make the cost of the initial consultation quite high, because we have to pay the doctors, and unfortunately for me, but fortunately for them, it takes a long time to get their doctor's degree and to be able to prescribe medicinal cannabis. Also, they have to be fully indemnified, which is, you're talking about huge costs for indemnifying doctors from prescribing anything, let alone an unlicensed medication. So the costs they're not cheap. I think they're in line with or slightly below consultations that you would have in the private sector in Ireland. So you're looking at €200 for an initial consultation and €100 for a follow-up consultation. Follow-up consultations would be every 3 months on average.
So anyway, you have to be very transparent about all this if you're going to attract patients into the fold, if you like.
Absolutely, there's no point in hiding anything. You've got to be transparent. As more and more doctors become educated in medicinal cannabis and hopefully come on board with us, then I would estimate that those prices could halve. Yeah,
it was a recurring theme in that webinar, was the fact that they haven't had the amount of people kind of sign up as was hoped initially in 2018 when they embarked on their legalization within the UK. There was a lot of, they were expecting bigger numbers than what has materialized.
Yeah, in the jurisdictions that we operate, per person per capita, we have more people that register than they do in England. And the reasons behind that is draconian punishments for self-medicating or having cannabis, and the price of illicit drugs.
Right. What would be the clinic's attitude to within the right to grow? So like within on this actual Canna We Talk Now series of talks, we've actually had people like fibromyalgia, which you mentioned before, with people wearing balaclavas, you know, and it's shocking.
Yeah, I mean the problem is people want to keep their anonymity, and a lot of people are not happy putting themselves out there. I mean, you're obviously out there. You're a big advocator. I think it can give the wrong message, but people are allowed to keep their anonymity if they wish.
Okay, I'm looking here while I've got my eyes over here looking at all these questions, and there were quite a few. But
Okay.
basically, the big one was always the how, you know, and so I think you've covered that. The ministerial license, are you happy with that way will work?
Ask me again in 3 months.
Right.
But look, you have to work with what you've got. You know, there are different jurisdictions that have different laws, different regulations, and we've worked with them, with most of them. So I'm happy that the MCAT is there, and I'm happy that there is an access program where we can use the ministerial license. Once they've got that, they're good for 12 months. So yeah, I hope it will work, but we have to see.
So you're good for 12 months. My experience, like my friends on ministerial license tell me that every 6 months they have to go back into this, like they have to go back applying.
So my team tell me that with the ministerial license and the way that we're applying for it, we will get 12 months. So if it's 6, then I'll stand corrected, but I've been told it's 12. Right.
Okay. That would be great. And then distribution, is there anything like what we, like people, would there be what would be the freedom of travel, let's say, with their, I'm a patient of your clinic, the Medicann clinic, and so what does that allow me? Does that allow me?
It's not a carte blanche to carry cannabis in a paper bag, but
right.
You are prescribed a medicinal product. You will have an electronic copy of your prescription that you'll be able to have on your phone or your laptop or whatever. And what we do advise people to do is if they're going to travel outside of the jurisdiction, that they check, first of all, with the embassy at where they're going to make sure that medicinal cannabis is legal. I mean, I would not be flying to Dubai with CBD, never mind medicinal cannabis, because it's illegal. So there's no point saying, well, I am legal because I've got a ministerial license and I've got a prescription for medical cannabis. They don't care. It's illegal in the country and you will go to jail. So it's important that you check, but then we can also provide you with a letter from one of the specialists that says that you are prescribed medicinal cannabis. So you have a prescription and what we call a travel letter, which says I'm leaving the country on this date, I'm going here, and I'm going to be coming back on this date, and I am going to be traveling with my medicinal cannabis. What I would say is take all the precautions you can. So carry your prescription, carry the medication in the container that it was actually prescribed in. Make sure the label's still on the medication so that you can see it's prescribed to you. Those sort of things. If you take every precaution you can and you check with the jurisdiction that you're traveling to, then you should be fine.
Absolutely. Ireland still remains a little bit of a fearful place. With our prohibition is very strong. Literally, just so people, this weekend we have one of our great activists in Patrick Moore who will pass his 350th day of a 5-year sentence that he was doing nothing, only growing and providing oils for no profits, providing oils for patients that was working very effectively. One gentleman, all his patients testified in court for him, and he's still got 5 years. So there is our prohibition is horribly strong in Ireland, and every day I receive into my Irish Canna clinic kind of feeds. There is a new people. So there's real fear out there. So it's good that you're aware of the concerns, let's say.
That's very similar in all the jurisdictions that we operate in. The Isle of Man, Jersey, and Guernsey are all very, very strong on drugs of any type. So hence why medicinal cannabis that is legal, that is prescribed by a consultant, obviously is a way forward for everybody.
Does the border create any extra nuance?
The border between Ireland and Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
It's a border. Whether it's a border between Ireland or England or Holland or Spain, you just have to check that the jurisdiction that you're entering, where you can have medicinal cannabis. And if you can, you've got your travel letter and you've got your prescription, then you should be good to go. But obviously, customs officers, I mean, I get calls off customs officers at least once a month where they say, I'm calling you because I've got this person that we've detained, he's got medicinal cannabis, we're just checking that his prescription that he's shown us is legal, blah blah blah. If we have consent from the patient to speak to the customs officer, then we'll obviously explain to them. It's new for lots of people, lots of security people at the events that people go to, lots of police officers, lots of customs officers. You know, they're not yet familiar with medicinal cannabis. They still have this conception of cannabis as being a recreational drug, not a medication. And it's the education and the more people that become aware of medicinal cannabis that will help change those perceptions.
Within that is you're aware of Cann card, I presume? I
am.
And is there is that something that you would kind of promote in a way, or it can come in tandem with you?
I think anything that helps, but it's got to be something that has been adopted by all the jurisdictions, all the police forces, all the border control. And I'm not sure that we're there yet with one card, whereas at least with an actual prescription and a letter from your prescribing doctor, that's very personalized, and obviously it should be sufficient to get you whatever you need to do.
Yeah. Okay, I had a lot of questions from people, just so you're aware that I'm aware of the questions that I got from people regarding product, but that's not really your kind of thing.
No, because, well, I mean, it is in that we deal with any or most EU GMP providers, and that we obviously only deal with product which is EU GMP. So It's got to pass a medical grade for us to be able to prescribe it.
Is that product usually coming, is it UK produced?
So you wouldn't, but there's only one product that's been produced ever in the UK, and actually that's being produced in Jersey and is being launched next week. So that's the first one ever that's been produced in the UK, grown in the UK. But most products come from the EU. So and in fact, on the ministerial license, that any product that we're going to put on that ministerial license has to have been prescribed in Europe. So we couldn't use, as an example, an Australian product that's never been prescribed in Europe, or a product from England, as an example, if it's never been prescribed in Europe, because even if it had been prescribed in England, it would not qualify.
Right. Because you have a lot of like this big Australian involvement in France, for instance, who are kind of a lot of they had their big pilot program in France.
Yeah, so any product that's being prescribed in France or Germany or Holland, that's been prescribed as a medicinal cannabis product, we should be able to access and bring in.
Right. And so is it something then that patients can look forward to a range of products?
Absolutely, there isn't a one product fits all in medicinal cannabis. In fact, we're looking at the endocannabinoid DNA tests, which look at the best products, the best terpenes, the best cannabinoids that will work with your own personal endocannabinoid system.
Wow, well, that's quite innovative. So tell us a little bit more about that. You have an endocannabinoid test.
Yeah, it's a DNA test, and it looks at your own DNA and looks at the different, as you're aware, the different cannabinoids, the different terpenes that will potentially work best for you, or that it may not work for you. So there could be a particular cannabinoid that doesn't look as if it will work with your own DNA.
Right. Okay, I'm just briefly running through these, but that's kind of, in terms of products, people are asking about edibles, vapes, flowers, drinks, concentrates is good, but that's not really your bag.
I'll tell you what I'll do for you, because obviously you're the first person that I've done this kind of blog with. I'll give you a free DNA test for you to give to one of your people. So if you want to do your own draw, I won't take part in it. But all of your people that listen to you, that come and watch you, that follow you, if they email you in, you pick one out, and we'll send them a DNA test so they can actually try it.
How about that, people? You can interested, because I mean, I haven't heard of it kind of being offered from other. Is it across medical clinics in UK now? They're doing tests like this?
No, it's mainly in the US. But we try to be at the forefront of everything that's going on in the cannabis industry. So, as an example, the first British product that has come out there, which isn't actually English, it's from Jersey. We are already promoting that to our prescribers to have a look at how they feel that will work and what conditions they feel it may work with. So we try and keep ahead of everything, but you can't keep ahead of everything, but we try.
It's really everybody's big thing is about the access. They want to understand how this access is going to work, whether this is is it a bit of a pulling info, is it a bit of a data scrape that's going on? People are skeptical, because there are nefarious characters in this space all the time, and so that's. But I think you've reassured me on that.
I think if you have a look online, if you look at our clinics that we've got in Jersey, Guernsey, if you look at the comments that people are making, you will see that we're a genuine company. Getting people's data is absolutely no use to us unless we can prescribe for them. The difference between us and other people and people who've tried before is we do have people who are very pro medicinal cannabis, who are consultants, who are on the specialist register, and who will prescribe medicinal cannabis. They're not afraid to prescribe medicinal cannabis. And that, I think, will change people's perceptions, and hopefully we'll go away from a ministerial license and go to where we can prescribe for it reasonably freely, obviously within certain criteria, and only for people who are eligible. But I think that will happen over a number of months or years.
Well, and I have to say again, to reassure everybody, that people have been very positive about this. I've put it out on these different platforms, and everybody wants this to happen. And really, the point of this call, and I'm feeling reassured, is that you're not just a bunch of dudes slinging hopium at people, which is because people are desperate when I live with pain, and it's not fun. And we have people living in different jurisdictions as refugees. Our most famous refugees, we used to export our fallen ladies for abortions. I mean, this is these are kind of things, paradigm shifts needs to happen here in terms of medicine and how people are being treated.
Absolutely. And look, it is only with people trying to push boundaries that we'll get that. So the more people that come forward, the more people that find out they are eligible, the more people that go on MCAT or that go on a ministerial license, the more the government will see that there is a need for it. If nobody tries to get medicinal cannabis and nobody tries to get treatment, then it's never going to go forward.
Quite a few people, to be honest. I don't have there's not a lot of subscribers on this thing. Subscribe now, people, but there's not a lot. But the point is that the reach is big. It's like Cron. We have 20% of the population, the Irish population, are using and or they're au fait with cannabis as part of their lives, and they're using it for a bunch of medical reasons. So people can be, but prohibition looks to be it's the worst. It's the most medically damaging for people.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look, what you have to do is look at other jurisdictions, look at Canada, etc. And I think we chatted about this earlier. 50% of the people who have Crohn's in Canada are using medicinal cannabis. That's a massive amount. And when you get that amount of people using a medication, it stops to be looked at as a recreational drug and it becomes a medication.
Yeah, that's why it's and it's Crohn's particularly was one of the guys who testified, one of the patients who testified for Patrick Moore, and that's why, and they had massive results from using Patrick's oil. And so the fact that the fact that we're still putting people away, putting people in jail, when it really just needs to open up, and it needs to be like you're doing, you're prescribing properly, and medical cannabis is produced in a way that can solve a lot of these issues.
Absolutely. And look, people who have unfortunately broken the law doing cannabis, if you look at the US now, a lot of the states are releasing those people because they now have made it legal. So, hopefully, as more and more people start to use medicinal cannabis and it starts to become a regular thing, then the more there will be a chance of people being released from jail.
Okay, well, I don't think there's any. You've covered just about everything as far as I can see from my questions. As you said before, the products, people are very specifically looking for information on the actual products and where it comes from, blah blah blah. That information would be available via your website and all those things.
Yeah, and obviously when they have their consultation, they're free to ask absolutely anything. These consultants have been fully trained in medicinal cannabis prescribing, so they can go into any details they wish about the particular product, and they have leaflets on the product that they can share with the patient.
How long is Medicann in action?
So Medicann itself has been prescribing for 4 years.
Right. And it's only 5 years legal in the UK as of last week, I think, or something. You had a moment in the UK as well where you had your first NHS patient, Michael. What's his name? But he received he was down in Westminster, and he received he's the first guy to get his medical cannabis covered on the NHS.
Yeah, so we've got a couple of people who got it covered on health insurance as well, but it's very rare, very few and far between. We're constantly looking at every jurisdiction and talking to every government about what we can do to help people. What can they give? It's a medication. Will they give something towards the prescribing? Will they pay for this? Will they pay for that? And if actually. Ireland is ahead of most places. They do have the MCAP availability, and that's that is actually groundbreaking. If you look at England, if you look at the Isle of Man, if you look at Jersey, if you look at Guernsey, it's just getting more conditions on that MCAP and more patients being available, and that obviously is what we. I
always draw. Sorry to interject on you. I always draw the comparison between Denmark. Denmark and Ireland have really, really similar demographics of population size and all that, and Denmark has a similar access program, but they have chronic pain on their access program.
Yeah.
And as a result, they have 3,000. There's 3,000 over 3,000 patients, I believe, on the Denmark program. There's a bit of a kickback from
it's sort of chicken and egg. The more people that are aware of it, the more people that can get helped by it, the more it will become accepted as a medication, and it's just the way it is, you know.
Yeah. Look, cheers, Gary, for your time. It's been enlightening, and I hope it has been enlightening for everybody out there. And I'll leave all the details underneath in the description of the call of the clinic and where people can act. And we will we'll be running out that draw to find some of who want to do the DNA test and see what's going on with their ECS.
Absolutely.
It's still an amazing thing how I just finished a course like postgrad in Trinity with a postgrad in entrepreneurship, but it had a specialization in healthcare.
Right.
And so I was inside the kind of Trinity College world of healthcare somehow, and but it's shocking to think that ECS is not being taught in medical schools. And you go, how do you move forward with this if you don't start training your doctors? And so it has to be done privately, it seems. That's what I'm getting to.
That's where we are now. Where we'll be in 3-4 years, hopefully in a different place. But where we are now is that it's all private.
Okay, well, we wish you the best with it all, Gary, and thanks for spending some time with me here this morning. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
No problem. Thank you very much for inviting me.